I wanna find the very best way to organize. Managing life was my real test. I made that shit my cause. And I found it! After years and years of searching, I finally found it and wrote the secret in this Word doc. Unfortunately, one night my computer fucking auto-updated without my permission, and I forgot to save the doc, so I had to go back to using my pleb ways to organize my life. Now, in today's video, I can't share the perfect technique because, it didn't save and stuff, but I can show you my more plebeian way of doing things, which only one person asked for. Now, of course, I'm still trying to find the perfect way to schedule my life, especially as things are getting exponentially more difficult and more busy. This is just the easiest way for me to keep track of my schedule as a student. I know there are certain things that I do that have worked for me that might not work for you as an adult. But yeah, I've always wanted to be super organized and stuff, and I've been tweaking what I do more or less to streamline the process and just to make things feel more natural. But that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what I do. One is a bit more big picture, and the second one is for more day-to-day minor things. Now, first off, I never used a planner in high school. I kind of just kept everything in the dome, listed out what I had to do for each class and each extracurricular and see if I had work for that day. But the thing is, when you get to college, there's a bit more on your plate. Everything's a bit more busy, so I had to improvise and come up with my own new little system. And here's what I came up with. In the beginning of college, I had my friend buy me a planner and stuff, but I really never used it. The reason being, first of all, in college, a lot of your homework, you can see it on Canvas, a lot of your test days and everything. Meanwhile, the more life-related stuff, like clubs, or if I have to go get milk or something, these are the types of things that a lot of times I tend to remember them when I'm walking to class or when I'm just doing something random that it isn't very convenient for me to take out my planner. And I would always forget to put my planner in my backpack. I'd forget to write in my planner because it was really inconvenient for me to take it out of that backpack. And as someone who just never got in the habit of using a planner in high school, I really just couldn't get used to using that planner. And I found that entire process a little bit annoying, I'll talk a little bit later about why I never really got into using the Notes app. But now I'm going to talk about the system that I came up with. Now, to remove that hurdle, I got the smallest notebook I could find. And the first one I ever had, I looted it from a college fair while I was just there to take all the free stuff. And I just keep it as part of my everyday carry, when you take your keys, your wallet, all that stuff. I also remember to take this little notebook with me. And I know it's weird, but it's just always in my pocket, and it's really tiny, so anytime I really want to write something, I can just take it out of my pocket, write something. And if I don't have a pencil on me, I also have something called a Swiss card, which has a pen inside, and I can take out that tiny pen and I can write in here. And then I didn't really feel like it was a burden writing anymore because I didn't have to go into my backpack and dig through everything, and it was just something else that I carried around with me at all times along with my wallet and keys. Now, every day I'd write these things down. First, I'd write down the recurring things that I had to do. For example, sometimes you have weekly discussion boards or weekly assignments that you have to do, and this might be the most important thing for you to write down because sometimes when you think about what assignments you have to do, you really forget about those weekly things you have to do because in your head, you sort of just push them off, and then you end up forgetting to do the weekly things like the discussions and stuff. And then under that, I write down all the important dates, such as the next upcoming test dates, the days that the homeworks are due, and if I have a one-time thing to do, get dinner with this person or do that, right? And then after that, I just write down one giant sentence that lists out my to-do list for the day. For example, I'll write down social quiz, study immuno, get milk, tennis, lab report, laundry. And whenever I have a random thought or idea, I kind of just write it at the bottom of the page or add it to a new page or something like that. This isn't the most organized thing, but because it's so portable, I'm able to write down all the thoughts and keep track of what needs to be done for me. As for why I don't use the Notes app, the thing is I just never really got a system of checking the Notes app to stick with me. A lot of times when you check your phone, you go through this entire cycle. For example, you check through Facebook, then you go to Instagram, then you go to Snapchat, then you go to TikTok, and then you just cycle through these apps, and then you kind of get sucked in a giant black hole, And a lot of times when I was like going to check the Notes app, I'd get a notification from messages or something like that. I'd check the message first, and then I'd go through that cycle again, check Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok. And by the time I was done, I would completely forget that I was going to check the Notes app. Now, because of that vicious cycle, even though I was able to like write things down in the Notes app, I never made it a habit to check over what I had written down in the Notes app because it just wasn't that immediate. While with the little notebook, I knew that this is where I was keeping my schedule, so I checked it all the time. Now, in general, I do prefer to like keep things on pen and paper. I think that it makes what you do feel a little bit more important, but at the same time, I understand that for a lot of people, writing things in the Notes app isn't a big deal, and it isn't that much more beneficial to keep things written down in pen and paper. Really, the biggest reason that I write things down in this notebook is just because it works for me and not because it's necessarily like better. And now, just because of that cycle of apps that I go through that I was talking about, one day I just decided, for those small important details that sometimes you forget to do, like, it'd be an even better idea to try to incorporate that into the cycle of apps that I do so that I could constantly remind myself of what I had to do. And I found that the app that I used most often was Facebook Messenger. So I slowly tried to begin to make it a habit for all those tiny little detailed day-to-day things like getting milk, like doing your laundry. These things I would try to incorporate into this cycle of apps. And then every time I got sucked into this cycle of apps, for example, if I went to go check a Facebook message, I would see that I left myself that reminder, right? And I would remember to do it because every time I checked the app, I saw that reminder. Every time I checked the app, I saw the reminder. And then slowly I began to shift like the notebook from the writing everything down to just more the big picture things like when assignments are due, if I have like certain meeting times or dates a little bit in the future. But those really day-to-day small details like, oh, go get milk or go do laundry. I've used this example so many freaking times because these are the things I forget to do the most. These small day-to-day details, I would message myself in Facebook Messenger. Now the advantages of this are one, like if no one messages you, like if you're a loser, it'll look like to other people as though more people are messaging you, even though it's just you messaging yourself. So that's been one of the biggest advantages for me. But secondly, another huge advantage is just if you're checking your phone all the time to go through messages, well then you're constantly reminding yourself, well then you're constantly seeing the messages that you sent to yourself as well, and you're constantly remembering the little tiny things you have to do during the day. Instead of like, even though this tiny book is portable, it's even easier and more natural to just check your text because that's something that everyone does. Now, let's say for example I'm walking to class and then I'm like, oh crap, I gotta get milk. I just quickly message myself, get milk, right? And then after I walk out of class, normally that'd be something I forget. But then normally when I walk out of class and I check my messages, I see that I sent myself that message before. It was like, get milk, and then I remember to do it. See, that's how I ended up splitting up my schedule into like one thing, this notebook, just for that bigger picture type of like assignments, due dates, all those types of things, and just a small to-do list, and those really tiny day-to-day life details and like ideas that I didn't want to forget. For example, TikTok ideas in the Facebook message, and then leaving those like really small day-to-day things that you have to do, or like ideas. For example, all the time I write TikTok ideas, leaving that for Facebook Messenger and just messaging that to yourself so you don't forget about it. Now, I know it's really easy to just get really distracted by your phone, and sometimes, even I have like 6 hours of screen on time, like it's sometimes even 7, and like it just totally ruins your schedule. And for me, just like a huge part of that was just like constantly cycling between the apps like Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and just cycling through these social media platforms. And in terms of that, I found two main things really helpful. The first one is disrupt that cycle, and the second one is add to that cycle. Now, in terms of disrupting that cycle, this is what I mean. For example, I deleted the Instagram app and I deleted the Snapchat app. I now check my Instagram on Safari, and I re-download Snapchat once a day to keep my streak with my best friend alive. I know that's really cringe, but it's super long. I don't want to kill it, you know what I mean? When are you supposed to stop keeping your streaks? When you're, 20, 30, 50? I don't know. Anyways, I know it sounds really dumb, but it's probably cut down my screen on time by like an hour a day. It's not that you can't check these things, it's just you gave yourself a slightly bigger hurdle, so you don't feel like checking these things as much. So that's what it means to cut away the distractions. Now, in terms of adding to the cycle, what this means is like, if you truly can't stop yourself from just like constantly checking your phone, try to make it a habit to add something productive into that cycle. For example, for me, during times when I have like break and there's really just nothing to do and I'm on my phone all day, I make sure to add the Books app to that cycle. For example, first I check Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and then enter the Books app and read 2 to 3 pages. And if you just add something more productive into that cycle, you won't realize it, but like you get a lot of work done without even trying. For example, over break, in 10 days, I finished 2 books just because like every time I cycled through, I would come back and read 2 pages. And then by the end of break, I had already finished 2 books and I barely even knew about it. So to summarize, if you're looking to spend less time on your phone, one thing I would say is break the cycle. And the other thing I would say is if you really can't break the cycle, add to the cycle. So you're at least doing something productive in the midst of doing a lot of unproductive things. See, now I know what I do is a little bit ratchet, like messaging myself reminders in Facebook Messenger, having a tiny notebook that I carry around with me at all times. I know it's a little bit ratchet, and I know it won't work for everyone. A lot of people need things planned a lot more in detail, like every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes. That's not what I do. I more or less block it out by hour. Like this sure as hell wouldn't work for a guy like Elon Musk. It wouldn't work for like a busy professor who has meetings scheduled from day to night. But if you're just a college student who like has to keep track of a couple of extracurriculars, schoolwork, and just general like life stuff, this might work excellently for you, and it doesn't take a lot of management. But once again, at the end of the day, I'm also trying to improve the way that I schedule. So if you have any advice, any systems that work well for you, feel free to leave them in the comments down below as well. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.